Hey everyone, welcome to GMT Talks. Here, me and Dr. Adipati Garu will discuss about various skill sets, career opportunities, and we're going to be providing a lot of tips going forward. So thanks for tuning in. And coming to today's topic, we're going to discuss about oral skills and their importance. And without further ado, I'll hand over the space to Dr. Adipati Garu. And sir, can you please start and then we can proceed?
To begin with, let's first know what these oral skills are. Now, this carries two important words, oral and skills. We are using skills, not skill, the plural form. So, when we are talking about oral, the communication by mouth, it involves several skills because the The point here is how to master these oral skills, this kind of communication.
Right.
So, the other name for oral skills is verbal skills. I hope you must have
Yep.
heard about it.
Yep.
What is the oral skill? It is, in a way, we can call it as communication skill, the ability to transmit a message from one person to another person in an intelligible way. That is, I'm using the word intelligible within the
Mm,
quote because it should be comprehensible by the listener. The listener must be able to uh, decode the message given by the speaker. So it is the ability to transmit a piece of information and also ideas. We do not merely communicate information, correct? We
right.
also share our ideas and thoughts. Sometimes we share our feelings, our emotional responses, our experiences, and so on. So when it is transmitted, the listener must be able to interpret that data.
Exactly. True.
Uh, So this is a two-way process. It's not that the speaker keeps on speaking and the listener keeps on nodding his head. There
True.
should be a
True.
kind of response in the form of feedback. And this kind
Exactly.
of response facilitates communication complete between the two. This is
Yeah.
called oral skill. I hope you understand this, right?
Exactly.
And then there is another word, skill. Skill is a talent and it can be acquired and it can also be inherited. Inherited um, in certain families where they carry on the traditional occupation, the children can learn those skills, those traditional occupation from their parents. There is no need for the children to go out and acquire the skills. As for instance, carpentry. Let's take this. In a carpentry family, the children can learn the skills from watching how their parents are doing the things, making the tables, chairs, and so on. Slowly and steadily, the children will pick up the lessons by watching and then they learn it. So they don't go out. But the oral skill is something that can be learned from outside because it cannot be inherited. Um, because it is a skill. Skill means several
Right. It can be inherited.
elements are involved in skills. We will come to those elements. So this is what I would like to convey what we mean by oral skills.
Exactly.
So, um,
So these oral skills. So I want to highlight 2 points here. Okay. So the first point I want to really highlight is it has to be inherited, right? So basically, it can be inherited, it can be learned. So there are multiple ways to acquire these important skills, right? And the second important point that you mentioned is that these skills play a very vital role in passing the message.
mm,
Whatever you see, you have to be able to communicate with others. And to have this communication, have your feelings shared, these oral skills are very much important, right? All right. So for the next question, sir, now how can developing these strong oral skills, right? Now let's talk only about the
yeah.
professional part of the career, right? How can learning these oral skills affect one's career and prospects?
Before um, we go to the acquisition of those skills, as to how to acquire those skills,
Right,
let me point out one important aspect here, that communication always tells what you are and who you are.
it defines you. True.
Yes. Uh, and when we are in society, when we interact with the people in society, we have to assert ourselves who we are and what we are.
True.
And the best way of communicating who you are and what you are is oral communication. There is, of course, written communication, written skills, but written communication is always a distant one, because the listener is placed somewhere and the
Right.
writer communicator is placed in another place, and the feedback and the response is not immediate, it is always postponed into the future. But
Right.
in the oral communication, it is a face to face dialogue, it is a face
Right.
to face
It's
communication.
real time. A writing skill is something which the listener is not real time, right? But oral skill is where people are real time. So you get real time feedback.
Yeah. So I can communicate who I am, what I am immediately, and I can take the feedback, the response from the listener immediately. It is not postponed. And this is a very powerful communication. This is the way how we can communicate who we are, what we are. But then it also involves certain skills, because we are using the word skills, not skill, which means there are certain elements that go in making the speaker a good speaker, a better speaker, or a good communicator, or a better communicator. The first element that we need to take care of in oral skills is articulation. I hope you understand this word articulation. This is nothing but the volume of sound,
Formulating. Right.
but this volume of sound is determined by the intensity of the airflow. And this is very important, because a louder voice can communicate in a better way if the gathering is a large one. Correct? If there is a large audience in a big hall, you need to be little louder. So their louder voice plays an important
Right.
role. But in a face-to-face dialogue like this, sitting face to face, I need not increase the volume of my sound. If the listener can
Correct. The
understand,
clearer the better.
yes.
Exactly.
So what we use, what we understand in this particular element that governs oral skills, that is articulation, is intelligibility of your speech. Because in a large gathering, if your voice is loud, then your speech becomes very intelligible. The audience will be able to grasp and receive the message, information, ideas from the speaker very easily. So I hope you understand this first element in the oral skill.
Oh,
The second element is pace, P-A-C-E. I hope you
the
understand.
pace of,
The
yeah, the
pace,
pace of
the pace
speaking.
is whether we should speak in a monotone, in a moderate speech. Moderate speech is very important in oral skills, because the listener must be able to receive the input from the speaker and process that information. He must be able to understand it, and later on he must be ready to respond to that. So there are two ways: receiving, comprehending, and processing the data. These two take place in a face-to-face communication. So of course, in a larger gathering also. So what I want to tell you is that there is another element, say call it the second element, because we have already discussed the first element, articulation. This element is crucial in oral communication, that is pace. That is, how many words can we speak in a minute? A moderate pace approximately carries 120 to 150 words in a
Minute.
minute. Yes, per minute, in a minute. So 120 to 150 words means the pace is moderate. If you speak fast, then the listener may not be in a position to understand, because I have already stated it involves two-way process. There are two things that involve here. One is the listener must be able to receive the output
Reaction.
and
Yeah.
respond to that. That response is very important. So the speaker must be able to facilitate that to the listener. This is called pace. The pace is very important. It should be a moderate pace, not rushing through the information.
Or
Just
too
because
slow.
I'm loaded with so much of information, I can't simply rush through.
Bombard. Yeah.
Huh. And
Exactly.
also, I must see the capacity of the listener, how much he can receive. Suppose he is a common man, an ordinary man, an average man, then I need to maintain the pace of my speech, right? If it is a large gathering comprising experts, say if, in a medical college, an expert is delivering a lecture to an audience comprising only doctors, they can understand. Ordinary man like me cannot understand those technical words used.
Exactly. So,
You,
so knowing your target audience also plays a
yeah.
very key role in deciding the pace.
Then there is another element that governs this oral skill, that is pronunciation and stress. You know, many, because English is not a language that can be spoken as we like. It, it is not like any other language. It is governed by two principles, namely its orthography is totally different from its what is called the pronunciation, the sound system. The spelling is different from the sound. So these two factors are very important when we speak in English. So it's not like any other language that we can speak. There is no one-to-one correspondence between the spelling and sound in English language. So pronunciation is very important here. At the same time, stress also. Stress will carry a lot of force and what you want to drive the message. So if there is a word that contains polysyllables, which syllable needs to be stressed, right? And so on. So this is very important in oral skill, because when we converse in English, when we speak in Telugu, that is different. In our mother tongue, that is different. But when we speak in English, this particular aspect is very, very important, because pronunciation, leave alone the stress, because stress sometimes we may tend to forget, because you need a fine ambience where we can communicate. If it is an English society, the communication will be very easier. The pronunciation stress are integral, natural
Right.
process. But in a second language environment like in our society, the pronunciation matters a lot. So
Exactly.
every word we need to check how it is pronounced. This is very important. This is another element. And then
Got it.
the fourth element in oral skill is tone. Tone is very important. You know, our tone is governed by our emotions and the circumstances
Right.
where we are delivering a speech or where we are communicating our things, right? So it is nothing but a fluctuation of voice, the rise and falling voice. It is completely inflected by our emotions. So this tone is very important, right? We can't speak in a monotone. Yes, monotone will be very dull and uninteresting, and
It
it
will
will not
seem
carry the
robotic.
message. Yes.
Exactly.
Uh,
It will seem robotic.
you know,
So tone is
so
important.
a monotone can cause a listener to misinterpret the data also.
Exactly.
It doesn't create any kind of enthusiasm in the listener, in the audience. Then there is
Hmm.
called what is called verbose tone. Verbose, verbose,
VOS.
verbose. No, this kind of tone is filled with so much of technical words. This kind of verbose tone is useful in a restricted atmosphere, like when you are delivering an expert speech, an expertise speech, a technical speech on a particular subject. Then it involves a lot of verbosity. I mean, technical words, lot of full of jargon, and so this is verbose tone. And the inflection, informal tone. There is an informal tone also. Informal tone, when two persons meet each other and they can communicate in a very informal way. But more than that, the tone is very important. The tone plays a
Yeah.
key role in oral communication.
So the few things that are very important are the pronunciations, the tone of your speech, because I
Yeah,
think these two define how you're going to talk and how what
yes.
message you're going to right? We cannot have a very good message delivered in a bad tone because that takes the gist of the message that we're trying to pass. So, with all the explanation that we have given about the oral speech and all this, so it gives the listeners good opportunity to understand next time when they speak in a professional way or a personal
Uh,
way, how to proceed and how to formulate a structure. Yes, sir, you're proceeding.
there are two more elements I would like to add to the four elements which we have
Sure,
just.
sure.
The one more element is vocabulary. This vocabulary is very important when we speak in English. We should not fumble for words. Uh, and when we lack vocabulary, we start using fillers. Fillers like uh,
Yes,
that means fillers are different from pause. P-A-U-S-E. Pause means a brief stop. Now, this pause is very important, more important than using fillers. Fillers will give you a wrong impression to the listener, audience. The audience will get a very bad impression about the speaker. that this speaker is running short of vocabulary and so on. So try to avoid this use of fillers. Instead, we can use
Take a
pause.
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 Exactly.
Pause. A
Exactly.
pause, it is useful in two ways. It is useful for the
You
speaker
to think.
who can think,
Yep.
and um, it can make the listener to think.
More be actively. Yeah.
Uh,
Exactly. To
it
reflect.
facilitates.
To reflect.
It facilitates the
Exactly.
listener to think and contemplate.
Exactly.
So this
That's
pause
it.
is very important in oral skill, not the verbal fillers. The verbal pillars will give this. I have just now said the verbal pillars we use because when we do not have enough vocabulary, the vocabulary is very important. uh,
Exactly.
I hope.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yes, sir. We in this session have established a very good basic, let's say basic basement, like good basement for the listeners to improve their skills and to take it to the next level. So we will end the episode here and we'll come back to the next episode where we'll discuss further or on how these skills can be enhanced and how
yeah.
these examples are being does, and we're going to share our personal examples and take it further. So thank you so much listeners for tuning into a first episode on the inaugural episode of our channel. We really appreciate it, and have a good day.
Thank you very much. Namaste.